Alright guys, hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jimmy. This will be the last installation of my Ayahuasca / San Pedro journey in Ecuador at Guys and Grata. If you guys if this is your first time at watching this series of videos, go ahead and go click on the first one, link in the description below or above or wherever I decide to put it. That will kind of just walk you through my ayahuasca journey. I've done 3 ayahuasca ceremonies and I've done 2 San Pedro ceremonies. So in this video, we're just going to be going over my 3rd and final ayahuasca ceremony and my 2nd and final San Pedro ceremony. And again, just to recap here, ayahuasca comes from the veins or the vines in the Amazon rainforest, and the San Pedro medicine comes from the cactus. Okay. So, just high level overview. Right now I am in Medellin, Colombia. I am in a cabin, as you can see behind me. It's a really dope cabin. Just getting some work done out here. It's quiet, secluded. I was in Bogota for about 2 weeks, and I'll make another video about my experience there, but yeah, not really into the whole city thing. So yeah, let's just get into it. So my first ayahuasca ceremony, I did that with a different shaman as before, Black Jaguar, and this one was a lot different than the other ones because this one, he started off the ceremony with prayer like all the other shamans do, but then he also introduced another medicine, rape. So rape is this kind of I think it's like a tobacco a tobacco like, or it's some kind of it's another plant medicine. I'll put a description somewhere else in this video. And that medicine is designed to cleanse the spirit, just kind of like the tobacco plant that I mentioned in the other video. It's supposed to clean your spirit, your senses, so that when you take the ayahuasca can go through your system a lot faster, right? So it's pretty much just clearing the highway. Cool, whatever. These shamans always have something up their sleeves, so whatever. What we didn't find out until until we found out was that the rape had to be shot up your nose, right? So he had a pipe. He has this long pipe, and at the end of the pipe, he's literally blowing smoke up your nose, and he has to blow it up both nostrils, and it creates this kind of like explosion in your nose. If it really feels like your nose has been set on fire. And like I told you guys before, they do it in the way of creation. So this would be counterclockwise, I believe. And because you're supposed to walk in the way of creation, but for whatever reason he decided to do it clockwise. And so I had the unfortunate luck of being the first person to go up there, or the first person that he blew the smoke up his nose, like your nose, and quite literally, like everyone's on their bed, he's walking around, you're on bended knees, you're looking up at this guy, he's blowing smoke up your nose. He's making sure that you take it all in, and then he goes on to the next person. All you hear is like a bunch of sneezing and a lot of that, right? 2 people actually left because once they got the rape in the system, they were just over it. They were over it. They left. So that's kind of how the ceremony started. And then we got the ayahuasca. Nothing particularly unusual about that. Everyone got the medicine. What my experience with this medicine as opposed to the other 2 shamans is that I went to sleep immediately. Usually, as I say in my other videos, when I take ayahuasca, I tend to be more active, But with this, I took and I went straight to sleep. I was just, I don't know, maybe I was just tired, or there was a way that he brewed the medicine to just knock you out. But for the most, I went to sleep, and a lot of us went to sleep, right? It was a very quiet ceremony, very light music, if any at all. Yeah, just very chill. It was definitely not my favorite. Just like the experience wise, made me feel anxious, made me feel very paranoid. And I'm normally not a paranoid person, at least not hyper paranoid. And this made me really paranoid. But the visions that I got were necessary. So as I said before in my first video, that I actually came to Gaia Sangrada to do the medicine because I wanted to address two things. I wanted to figure out my purpose, and I wanted to figure out the source of my pain. And I did, and this ceremony, I got the second part of that quest. I got the first part with the other ceremonies. I got kind of my reason for being. And then I got the source of my pain with this one. With this ceremony, and let me just check out my notes here. With this ceremony, the first thing that came to me was I got this message that like I had a really important brain. I had a really special brain, and I had to put it to good use. So that was very interesting. Like, you know, it was like 5-10 minutes of that, just kind of like this sense of urgency that like my brain is really special and that I ought to be using it appropriately. So that was dope. Got my trusty little notes here. The second thing was the source of my pain. So I had when I was about 9 or 10 years old, I was touched by another child inappropriately. And I didn't think that was that big of a deal when it happened, only because nobody actually sat me down and kind of explained to me what she did was wrong. It was just kind of brushed under the table, like, you know, just move on, like just move on with it. So then I did. When I took the medicine, Mother Ayahuasca, the spirit, my higher self, however you want to identify it, she just let me know, like, yo, like that was not appropriate. That really set you down a deviant sexual path, and that you need to reconcile that experience with your inner self. You're my inner child, to be more specific, needs to heal from that. It needs to heal from losing its innocence. So that kind of put me in tears, right? Because it's one of those things where you hear it and you just kind of like, yeah, like it's so heavy because, you know, you got touched, you got violated as a child. You kind of brushed it. I'm 28 now, and that happened when I was 9. So that's like over 20 years ago, or a little under 20 years ago, that I've just been carrying something in the back of my subconscious, and it's come to the forefront, and it's just this like emotional outpour. And after the ceremony concluded, I had a conversation with another person there. Her name is Dee. Shout out to you, Dee. And then Dee just, like in that moment, I told her what happened, and she just said, you have to forgive yourself for what happened to you as a kid, because you were a kid, you didn't know any better. And you can't hold yourself accountable for something you didn't really know or understand. You have to forgive your inner child. And that was just so powerful in that moment, because she said it with the utmost sincerity, you know? And it just really resonated that like what happened to me wasn't my fault. And that I have to kind of forgive myself for that, because I can't hold myself accountable for what was done to me as a child. And I have to forgive my inner child, right? I have to forgive my inner child. I have to love my inner child. And I have to kind of integrate it into my life, because that inner child, that experience is part of me. And just what she said really resonated, and I just thank her for that. I thank her for that lesson. Thank you, Dee. I would say that ayahuasca ceremony just kind of sealed the deal in regards to the ayahuasca medicine. I no longer had any inclination of doing it anymore. I got everything that I needed. I got my purpose. I got the source of my pain. So I was good. Just kind of thanks, ayahuasca, but I'm good. Hopefully I never see you again. So that brings me into the San Pedro, right? So for the San Pedro ceremony, also looking at my notes here for that, just go ahead and bang them all out. So for the San Pedro ceremony, I don't know whether this matters or not, but there was about a 2.5 week gap between the ayahuasca ceremony and the San Pedro ceremony. My San Pedro ceremony, the reason being is because in my last video, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but ayahuasca had told me that I should stay at Gaia, I should stay in Ecuador. My work wasn't done. She still wanted to work with me. And I really didn't really understand what that meant. So, but I listened, right? I had a flight to go to Panama, and I canceled that flight so I could just stay in at Gaia in Ecuador. And in between my last ayahuasca ceremony and the next San Pedro ceremony, there was a 2.5 week break, right? The retreat had to close down. Everybody went home just so they can regain their strength, right? So when I came back with a whole new group of people. I ended up doing the San Pedro ceremony eventually. And it was so empowering because it just gave me, that San Pedro ceremony just gave me everything that I needed, right? I'm not really going to go into like how the ceremony started because it's pretty much the same stuff that I mentioned in the other San Pedro ceremony. I will say that the one difference between this one and the Walk of Power is what they call it, my first San Pedro ceremony, is that we all got to pull a card. We all got to put a card on. The card had different kind of goals and intentions. Some people had humor, some people had love. I got to pull the card of simplicity. And when you do this before you take the medicine, right? You pull the card before you take the medicine, and then you just kind of meditate on what that card means and what the universe is trying to tell you. And for me, when I was in that world, when I was in that headspace, I realized that my life is very simple, but I have these very kind of grandiose ideas about my life. And what the medicine was just trying to tell me is you need to simplify the way that you see things. Like things aren't these, grandiose, like you're going to be put on a cross and die, like Jesus, it's more simple. It's more simple than that. It's more of a just kind of like, if you smile at people, if you hug people, if you be kind to people, you're doing good. Like you're putting out positive energy into the world, and it's just as simple as that. Like you don't need to open up these like big nonprofit organizations or cure world hunger or all these grandiose ideas that I have that other people have about contributing to the world. The medicine was just trying to tell me it could be as simple as smiling at somebody on the street, hugging somebody, just listening to somebody's problems, like some simple things that may not mean anything to me or to us, goes a long way in regards to the ripple effect it has on society, or just at the very least the individual you're talking to. So that's what I got from the San Pedro, is just more simplicity. Another thing that I learned is that the way that I love is even complicated, right? Putting me back into that space. The way that I love is complicated. Because in my reality, my friends and family, even the people, my lovers, there is this kind of condition that is placed both on their end and on my end in regards to love, right? Most people experience conditional love with their friends and family. It's if you toe the line, we will love you, and if you ever get out of line, we will take away said love, right? And an example being like if you don't have the same political ideas, you don't have the same religious ideas, if you don't have the same, economic success or status that we do, right? Like if you have a family of doctors and you decide you want to become a teacher, like you can get ostracized or something like that, right? Essentially is if you do not do what's expected of you, the love will be taken away. And that to me is conditional love. That sort of love has requirements that you need to meet, and if you don't meet them, the love will be taken away, or at the very least, the threat of the love being taken away will be presented, right? And if you think about that, like that's very complicated. You know what I'm saying? That's very much a that's a difficult thing that's difficult space to navigate, because you're spending your entire life pretty much on eggshells, even on the subconscious level, that like, well, if I ever decide I wanted to practice a different religion, or go into a different career, or just live a different lifestyle, like there is that kind of looming threat that my family will turn their back on me. So that's important to know. All this to say, that's what I understand. That's kind of how my life was. Like I had conditional. I was in a very conditional relationship with everybody in my life. If they acted a certain way, I loved them. If I acted a certain way, that they loved me. And that kind of love is very complicated, because you're always constantly worried that if you decide to pivot and do something else, then perhaps they might take away that love. Not necessarily, but there's that underlying fear, right? Because it's conditional. There are rules. And the rules complicate the love. And what I learned during my San Pedro ceremony is that the true unconditional love is from nature. It's from being out in nature. It's from taking in the sun rays. It's from feeling the breeze. It's from dipping your feet into the water. It's all these like elemental things that are given to you freely, and that have no expectations of reciprocity. The sun is going to shine on you whether you're a heroin addict or whether you're a Mother Teresa, right? Like the sun shines on everybody equally. It doesn't discriminate. The water, the rain's going to fall on everybody regardless of your profession or ideology. It loves unconditionally. The wind blows on every face. It does not discriminate. It doesn't care what part of the world you're on, what your skin color is, what your sexuality is. It just gives of itself. And in that San Pedro space, I realized that, nature has been loving me my entire life. Literally nature has been sustaining me my entire life, even as far as feeding the animals that I eat, providing me with clean water, providing me with the sun so that I'm not frozen to death. I don't freeze to death. All these things were given to me, whether I was angry or happy, whether I've been selfish or selfless. Like there's this abundance of love that nature has been given to me, and that is to me is unconditional love. And that to me is so simple, because all you have to just do is be in it. You just be in it and you're gonna get it all. Whereas dealing with another human being, there's just so much complexity, because they want something and you want something, and you guys have kind of, subconsciously negotiate how to both mutually gain from the relationship, and all that's really complicated. But just being out in nature, it's simple. Nature loves you, and if you love it back or not, it doesn't care, because it's gonna love you anyways. So yeah, I learned that nature is the prime example of unconditional love. I learned some other things that really just kind of like small things, like always keep a pen and paper, because while everybody else was slumped during that San Pedro ceremony, I was just up. I was just up, and I was just writing. I was just tearing through pieces of paper, writing, just getting all my thoughts and ideas out. Something else that I noted is that at the San Pedro ceremony, as I noted before, that everybody goes up and they speak to their shaman in public, and then they kind of pour out their hearts, their life story, and the shaman gives them advice, but vicariously gives us all advice. Something I've learned is that I can be hearing the most heart-wrenching stories from my brothers and sisters, and I can hold space for that. I can hear that, but then as soon as I get off the stage, it's kind of like it's off my chest. And I learned that I had this ability to just not hold on to anyone's pain. I can listen to it, I can empathize with it, but as soon as it's not in the forefront of my mind or of my attention, it's gone. Like I'm not thinking about what happened to you when you were 7 years old. I'm not thinking about what happened to you when you visited certain countries. Like any kind of tragedy that I hear does not stick onto my mind or my spirit. It's almost as if it washes off like the water on the back of a seal. And I learned that I had a really good gift of just being able to let go of other people's stories. I don't really hold on to it. So that was really important to know or learn about myself. And yeah, it was just, and then yeah, after that experience, and I had some other stuff, but lastly, never conform, right? I learned that the type of person that I am, and again, like the way that my brain kind of operates, I learned that I can never conform, and that I should never conform. I think even in an environment like Gaia Sangrada, where everybody is like spiritual and everybody's like, into Alan Watts and horoscopes and all these kind of like philosophical, spiritual things, and everyone kind of has a very similar psychographic behavior. Medicine was just telling me never conform. It was just telling me that like, although you can participate, you can never be one of them, and you should never want to be one of them. And that's kind of been my reality throughout my space, even as a Haitian American. Even when I'm in the Haitian community, I still feel as though I'm an outsider looking in, because I just never fully conform, right? In any space that I'm in, right? University, work, I just never really conform to the environment around me. I just make it a point to always try to maintain some kind of individuality. And the medicine was just kind of co-signing that, like, that's also part of what makes me special, is like the fact that I never conform, and that I should never conform, regardless of the consequences, right? Because there's always consequences to not conforming with the environment, the fear of being ostracized, so on and so forth. But the medicine was just like, yeah, fuck it. No, never conform. So yeah, that is, and then I ended up leaving Gaia Sagrada, and now I'm in Colombia, as I mentioned before, just kind of integrating what I've learned, and working on a lot of writing. And if you want to support my work, the link to my Breakhold book is down below. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. Feel free to reach out. If you've done Ayahuasca San Pedro, feel free to write your experiences down below, or reach out to me, and we can chop it up. But yeah, thanks for tuning in if you're still here. And yeah, good luck if you decide you want to do Ayahuasca San Pedro, and don't feel forced to do it if you don't absolutely feel called to do it. Okay? Best of luck.